In preparation for today's exercise, please install the Git SCM and the GitHub CLI. Links in the description below. We'll be gaining some familiarity with basic workflows in Git, and we'll work to identify the differences between Git and GitHub. We'll begin by creating a repository. Let's start by going to github.com, making sure we're logged in. Then we'll go to this green New button. Note that there are a variety of options on this page. Repository name, description, public versus private, and pre-populating the repository with certain files. For today, we're going to enter Git Workflows as the name. We'll set it to public, and we'll add a README. Then we can click Create Repository. So we've just created a space on GitHub for our Git repository. We have some really important contents in here, this whole README, and we want to be able to clone that down to our local Git source control. Let's do that next. Click Code up at the top here, and click the clipboard icon. That'll copy this link to your clipboard. Then let's open a command prompt and navigate to the directory that you want to end up containing our source code. From here, we can hit Git, clone, and then paste the link that we just copied. Then hit Enter. Let's change our directory to the directory we just cloned in. And then let's note what files are in that directory. Let's edit the README. Simple change, let's save it, then we can close that. So now we've got some pending changes locally. The README is changed and we've got a significant update. And we want to make sure that that code gets stored back on the remote server, which currently is hosted on GitHub. You can do that through the following. Do a git add, and I'll add the period here, which just says everything under this current directory. That'll include the README. You could alternatively say readme.md here. Then I'm going to commit those stage changes, and I'll say something like updated README. Now I'm going to push this updated change here up to the main branch on GitHub. So I'm saying from origin, this local change up to main. I'm going to push it. You may get this error that just says, hey, go ahead and log in. So we've pushed our updates. We've got the new README that should be remote. Let's check that out. Open back up your browser. We can refresh. Note that our update has been pushed up to the remote GitHub repository. This tends to be fine working in main if you're working by yourself. But once you start working with other individuals on your team, you'll want to work in branches. You'll note right now we just have the main branch. Let's swap back over to the command line and let's create a branch and do a similar workflow against a branch. Let's create a branch. Git checkout -b. This is going to check out the branch locally, and if the branch doesn't exist, it'll create the branch for us. Going to name our branch something like an identifier followed by the purpose. So in this case, it's just to show off branching for non-zero days. Similar to before, let's go ahead and open up that README. Let's give another amazingly important edit. We can save and close that. Then we can add and commit, just like we did before. Note that Git was a bit forgiving here. I actually made a typo. Well, let's go ahead and push to our branch. It's going to be the same git push origin, but now we'll type the name of our branch instead as the target. We've pushed our change to the branch, And now we can see it in the remote repository on GitHub. Let's take a look. You'll note it already says, hey, the branch got some pushes. Let's click to the branch. Alternatively, we can use this drop down. In the branch, we see we've got our important edit. Suppose we want to merge this over to main now. Well, we'd have to create a pull request. Let's do that now. To create a pull request, we can utilize the button up here. When you've recently pushed changes, it'll offer a comparison and pull request tool. Alternatively, you can go up to the tab, the pull request tab up here. Similar idea, new pull request. So say we'll go from our non-zero days branch to main, show you the comparison. It includes an important edit. Then we can create a pull request. Within this screen, we can change our title, important edit, and we can add a body which just says something like updated README. Then we can create a pull request. This is the page we arrive at when we create a pull request. But it's also the page that you would look at if you were a colleague attempting to code review changes made. You might walk in, go to the Files Change tab, see what was removed, what was added, potentially create a comment on a given change, add something about why, I'm not going to do that today. You could also potentially review the changes here, approve, request changes, or just add comments. You can't review your own changes, so for today's purposes, we can just merge the pull request. We'll do this through a squash and merge. I use squash and merge because generally, when working on a feature, the thing that's most relevant in history to look at is just the net changes, as seen in the files change. This says for all of the commits, just move them to one commit that will be shown in the history of the main branch. So we'll click squash and merge, and then we will perform that squash and merge. A few steps of confirmation there. I like to clean up the branch afterwards. We won't be working in this branch again, so we can go ahead and delete it. Now let's look at the code on the main branch. And we can see it has our important edit, as that merge was successful. The next step is a different workflow involving forking a repository from another contributor. To show the forking workflow, I'll use the icon at the top right labeled fork. I'll click that, and then I'll choose to place it on my user profile rather than the non-zero days organization. Takes a few seconds, then it'll actually show the result. Note that at the top right, the fork count now went to 1 from 0. Within this context, we can make another really important edit. I think you knew this was coming. We can commit those changes directly to the main branch within this fork. And then we can go about merging that or requesting that merge back to the original branch. All right, let's click this pull request tab. Let's click new pull request. Note that it's pre-populated with, hey, I want to go from board tweaks Git workflows back home to non-zero days Git workflows. We're able to do that merge. If there was a conflict, there's a little bit more. You have to figure out what changes you really want to include and not. There's a workflow for that. It becomes fairly intuitive as you play with it more. Let's go ahead and create that pull request. And this is going to look really similar to things we've done before. We create the pull request, and once again, it looks just like a pull request as we saw from working within a branch of the specific repository. And we can just show the squash and merge as before. Note that this pull request close doesn't come with the option to delete the repository or delete the branch. It's because it wasn't just a branch within the existing repository. This is owned by another user context in this case. If board tweak wants to delete this Git workflows, he's allowed to, but non-zero days doesn't have that privilege, and they're the ones that would have approved the pull request. Let's note just one more time, the changes did come through. really important edit was created as a result of merging that pull request. And we see we have the 2 closed pull requests from today's exercise. Today we covered some workflows in Git and GitHub. We showed working directly in a main branch as a solo developer, or working in a feature branch as part of a team. We created a pull request, we merged a pull request. We forked a repository and we merged that fork. If you have time, here's some things you can consider playing with. Create and resolve some merge conflicts. Store and source control your resume. Even if you don't have time, congrats on a non-zero day.